All right, and this is the Fooladi Fitness Podcast, episode number 10, joined today by my guy Thaddeus, AKA Mr. Regal Change, a man with a lot of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to topics like philosophy, spirituality, and overall self-development. So I appreciate you joining the podcast, man, and I'm ready to chop it up.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
No doubt, man. So just to start things off, I kind of want to get a little background information and background story of how you came across the path and the journey that we see you on today, and what were the events that eventually led you on this whole journey of becoming the best version of yourself on all different domains of life.
Yeah, that's a good question. I suppose the start would be just how I was raised, and I was raised to be somebody that would be catering to other people. I was a people pleaser. I was raised to be somebody that was not destined to have his own life. I do believe nowadays that we're all predestined for something, but we can choose how we go about that. And for so long, I was an atheist growing up, and in fact, there were times when I cursed God in early college because I was so upset with the way that things happened. I was very insecure and I was very unsettled with the way that things were being given unto me. I was working full time, I was going to school full time, and it seemed like I just wasn't getting anywhere. Everywhere you look, people are telling you, get a this, get a that. All for what? Just so I can stay in debt. And I did it. That's what I did because I didn't know what else to do. The people in my family, they weren't aware of what to do either. It's not really any fault of their own in some ways, but in other ways it was. And so I had to learn a lot of this stuff on my own. And all I knew was there was a particular time when I was telling my dreams to my other family members. We were all gathered outside and we were all talking about life and all that. And at the same time, it was very surface level at the time. And I decided to share what my dreams were. And my uncle told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Oh, don't do that. Like, your dreams always die anyway." Wow, okay. And that was hard to hear. Because I was literally being told by my own blood, don't be the best version of yourself. Don't strive. Don't have ambition. The world is going to kill it anyway. It's like, well, I learned later on after that in many ways that's true, but that's only if that you admit defeat. As long as you keep relentless striving, there's no telling where you're at. And so when I finally began to get my way to my spiritual path, when I was about 22, I took some psychedelics, and it wasn't necessarily that was the gateway, because I had some stuff previously, but some spiritual experiences previously, but I never knew there was a here, if that makes sense. So I never knew that there was something of substance that I could be with eternally within myself. And so that was new for me. And ever since then, I started to just go deeper and deeper. And then ultimately, I started following Jesus nearly 3 years ago now, and haven't looked back.
It's a great story right there. But you just dropped something that I talk about quite often on my channel, that I've had experiences with, which is psychedelics. So I kind of wanted to break that down. Like, what was the overall experience you had with this psychedelic substance, and how did it expand your perspective to like what you just explained, how there is a here and right now in your internal being that a lot of people in the modern day world, in modern day society, completely are clueless about until something, some substance, some experience, some just traumatic event, which is very like energetic, that kind of shoves them back into that state and then makes them realize, whoa, like life isn't just all about do this, do this, do that, like just running about doing all these business works. Yes, there's time and place for that, but a lot of these psychedelic experiences, especially when they're more profound, give you that connection back to your true essence that makes you realize, like, whoa, there's a time, there's like a here and now that I don't even realize is there. I feel like I've been sleepwalking for X amount of years until this point. So let's break down your experience in more details because it sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so my cynicism for life completely dissolved.
Mm,
I was very cynical and nihilistic up until that point. And in many ways, I thought that I was being righteous in my cynicism and my skepticism. And I think it's okay to have a healthy dose of skepticism. But what was so profound to me when the psychedelics, I had psilocybin mushrooms was my first psychedelic, and I've only had lysergic acid, diethylmide, LSD, and psilocybin. So haven't done the other stuff yet. I don't know exactly what you've done as far as
mm,
psychedelics, but so my first experience was psilocybin, and the main experience that really changed everything was I was outside at one point, and I was sitting not by a tree, and next to a tree, by a tree, I guess. And I remember laying down on my back, and I looked up, and it was as if the branches and the leaves on the branches were reaching down to me,
mm,
and they were almost like trying to comfort me with life and the nurturing of life itself. And in that moment, I felt I guess you could say, a feminine spirit in the tree. It was a very feminine energy, and it was very peaceful. And I never knew that, because my experience with women up until that point was a lot of narcissistic. Even men. I had no clue. I remember at one point I thought to myself, does anybody that's healthy even exist in this world? Like, is anybody healthy? I wouldn't even know what healthy looked like if I saw it. And but right after that experience, that was when I really started to understand that life doesn't have to be like that. And it was almost as if the the mushroom resolved parts of my psyche that I didn't even know needed resolving.
mm,
And that was probably the most psychologically profound experience as well.
mm. So that was the first experience was that was on mushrooms, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then how did you come across LSD, and how did those two experiences differ from each other?
Well, I like to say that LSD was the Star Wars version
Yeah, yeah.
of psychedelics, whereas the mushrooms were more like the Lord of the Rings.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I had LSD, I remember being so much more creative,
Hmm.
like so much more expressive.
Hmm.
Whereas with the mushroom, it was more really solid grounding into the depths of the earth.
Hmm. Hmm.
And with LSD though, I was so creative. I felt like I could create anything.
Hmm.
There was one point though with LSD where it was almost like I approached an edge that I wasn't sure I wanted to cross or not, and I almost like looked over the abyss, so to speak,
Hmm.
and I saw the infinitudes stretching forth before me in a way that I've seen on psilocybin at that point, but I didn't see it to that degree.
Hmm.
Uh, it was definitely as if I was peering into the future in a way that I never would have thought possible before.
Hmm.
What's so interesting about these compounds is just the the experience in of itself is so indescribable to somebody that's never done it.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Like,
Hmm.
and so when I talk about psychedelics sometimes on my channel, the people that, because I say I follow Christ, and so a lot of people that say like, why are you advertising? Like, why are you talking about this stuff? It's like, well, have you done it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you done it? Because if you've done it, we can probably, like, I can tell whether or not somebody has probably participated based off of their response.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times, they get kind of defensive and upset. It's like, no, this is not the way God intended it. And I said, look, I'm not saying that we should advocate for this kind of stuff. However, I wouldn't be the man I am today without that.
Mm-hmm.
100%. It's not like alcohol. It's not like marijuana. It's not like any of these other substances. This is this is like opening your spirit unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like trying to describe what salt tastes like to somebody that's never tried salt.
Yeah, yeah.
What were your experiences like? I'm curious.
So I was opposite of you. I started with acid first, and I like how you described it with the Star Wars thing, and I took it like a little another level where I think of it like the movie The Matrix. You see all the codes and stuff. Everything started making sense to me when I was on acid. I was like, yo, I can do this, I can do that. It was super stimulating, like extremely stimulating. And I got into LSD and then mushrooms, and then I had one really profound mushroom trip that I talked about on my channel. That was essentially my spiritual awakening. It was kind of like how you were describing that you were doing certain things before that were kind of getting you onto the spiritual path, but maybe your mushroom trip was what kind of like threw you off the edge or threw you into the deep end. It was like that for me. So I took 5 grams and I had like a huge ego death experience and everything like that, which kind of like led me down to what you see today of building up this brand, of trying to embody the best version of myself mentally, physically, spiritually, getting into practices like semen retention and everything like that that we're going to be talking about later on this podcast. But what I noticed the most about psychedelics, especially on the spiritual realm, is something that I referred to on my second channel that I made a video about. I said that they're essentially steroids for spiritual growth. Like if you take steroids and you go to the gym, you're going to blow up in size and strength, but you don't retain that size and strength um, into your day-to-day life if you just hop off these steroids. And once you get off the psychedelics, yes, you're going to be able to bring some of the insights and stuff like that that you get through that experience, but it's going to be watered down to the point where you don't get the full experience because it was too much all at once. It's kind of like a cheat code or a gateway to higher states of consciousness without doing the quote unquote work to get there. Like you're not actually getting in the gym like a natural bodybuilder to put in the reps, put in the sets, and actually grow over a certain amount of period of time. You're kind of straight shooting yourself right to that point, which is it can give you a good taste of what this stuff is all about, and that's what made you curious about this path. It was what made me curious about this path. A lot of other people who probably listening to this curious about the path, but it 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 can get to the point where you can use it as a form of escape rather than a form to enhance your life. So there's like certain ways I think you have to go about it to not get too caught in the deep end to the point where you kind of lose your groundedness and everything. But that's why I've tried things like microdosing. I don't know if you've tried that yet. So actually, I had a video on this channel talking about how I microdosed LSD for 90 days. So essentially, I was kind of like redoing my entire life after that big psychedelic experience with the shrooms. So the microdosing of the acid kind of gave me what you just said, that you can create everything, that you can connect the dots easier. And I started adding new habits into my life, whether that be reading, journaling, creating content. So it kind of accelerated my growth on my psychological development to another degree. But since that big spiritual awakening trip, I've taken only smaller doses because I feel like if you just keep running into the psychedelics, it gives you a certain amount of knowledge and the lessons that you need for this moment. And if you keep trying to force, trying to get more new information without actually using the information it's giving you right now, it's going to cause a quote unquote bad trip or cause you to veer away from it. Like it's going to purposely do it. And I've noticed that. And it's kind of made me respect it much more to a certain degree where it's not just, okay, man, I'm just going to go have fun with my friends and this and that, just trip out. It's like, whoa, no, this is like a almost like a ritual or ceremony that you really got to uh, dial in on for a certain reason. So that's essentially how I look about it. And there's obviously the other ones that are more intense, DMT, ayahuasca. I haven't tried those yet, but eventually later on down the line, I would want to dabble into that. But something that you talked about in your experiences was how you are a follower of Christ, but a lot of people will see things like psychedelics, this and that, and be like, whoa, bro, like this isn't what Jesus taught, X, Y, and Z. But I wanted to ask you, was that psychedelic experience, was it like filled with any visions or experiences with Jesus or anything like that, which kind of really pushed you down the path that we see you today?
No, I never had any visions or anything with Jesus and psychedelics. All of the things that I've had in the spiritual realm or the spiritual domain with Jesus has always been in dreams.
Mm,
I've had when I'm meditating or when I'm praying, I've had images of things that he's telling me or things that he wants to show me, but
mhm,
I've never been on a psychedelic trip and seen Jesus
mm,
or anything like that. I have seen other things, uh, and there are some things I don't even know if it's necessary for me to even discuss because it's almost too terrifying to even put into the consciousness. I
mhm,
don't think if I can barely handle it as somebody that has seen things that would turn people's blood cold, then it's probably not going to be the best for other people to even know about. Just because some people just aren't ready for knowledge, and
mhm,
that's one thing that I learned on psychedelics was that be careful what you're searching for because you just might find it.
mhm,
And I found a certain few things that was beautifully horrifying,
mhm,
and it was enough for me to see the pros and the cons of psychedelics. I was what you would call a psychonaut. I
mhm,
had I had probably over 30 trips or so within like 2 years,
mhm,
and it was pretty intense. Like it was that whole point of my life was very intense. It was interesting how you talked about like the steroids because I don't know if I necessarily agree. I can see how you would how you perceive that. Um, I think of it more as like somewhere in between like a supplement and a steroid.
yeah, yeah.
It's not quite like depending on how you use it.
Yeah, the
I
dosage probably will depend on if it's a supplement rather than a steroid, right?
right. So if it's
Uh,
like microdosing, which I did in the past, but if it's like microdosing, yeah, it's like a supplement,
yeah,
and you're definitely going to have a competitive edge over everybody. I 100% believe that.
mhm,
I mean, there's even times now where, like, I think to myself, yeah, you know, if I was microdosing, maybe, but um, I know that just given where I'm at, like things are good. Like with semen retention, things are solid. I'm really grounded. And so the temptation, I suppose, if you want to call it that, is there to microdose, but it's not necessarily at the forefront of what I'm doing because in many ways I'm more me now than I ever was before.
mhm,
And the main reason for that is because of Jesus. It's not because of the psychedelics. Psychedelics were a tool, absolutely, and I do not want to underestimate or undervalue them. But for me, it was Jesus, and he breathed life into me when I was spiritually dead,
mhm,
and I had no clue. So I'm a servant for him. That's the way that I see it.
mhm, mhm. I like how you said that psychedelics are a tool, and something that you also mentioned right there was semen retention, which is something that we both correlate and talk about on our channel. So, kind of want to ask you, so after your psychedelic experiences, after getting on the spiritual path, is that what led you down to the path of or the practice of retention and understanding how your sexual, how much power your sexual energy has, how you should be protecting it rather than depleting your life force energy and using it to accelerate your mental, physical, and spiritual development? Like, how did you first hear about it? What was your first like reaction to hearing about it? Did you think it was nonsense? Did you think it was something worth trying? And like, how did you go about the overall process?
Yeah, so initially, like I've never been like a heavy corn user,
Mhm.
right? I don't know if we can actually say the word on here, but
I think
I
you
was never
can. I think it's gonna.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure about the algorithm there,
Yeah.
but I was never really like a porn user, and I
Uh-huh.
was never really like I would use it, but I wasn't addicted. Like it was more like I was told by the doctors that I had to release every
Mhm.
now and again. So that's what I did because like even on certain podcasts you'll hear like, "Oh yeah, for men it's like a warehouse and too many boxes of sperm, it gets backed up." And it's like
Yeah.
that's complete BS. Like
Mhm.
and I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I just was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." But I wasn't thinking for myself there. I was just seeing, oh, this is a person that seems like they know what they're talking about. I guess I'll just fall into their will. That was the way that, in third, in retrospect, that's what happened. But in October of 2021, I began to quit porn. I just was like, I don't even feel anything. Like I remember watching it for the last time, and I thought to myself, this is really weird. Like, this is really weird. I'm a full grown human being watching two other full grown human beings go at it like animals,
Mhm.
knowing that what I'm watching is complete fake
Mhm.
and I'm getting off to this. And I saw myself in a third person that I hadn't really seen before, only on like psychedelics. I've seen that kind of thing, and I was just immediately had that okay, never
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And just never again. To this day, I've never gone back to it. Never had a desire to go back to it.
Mhm.
But I did like I did participate in self pleasure for several months after that,
Mhm.
and God really just led me to it. I didn't even know about semen retention until I had already begun it.
Mhm.
Like I didn't even know about NoFap or anything until I'd already started it.
Mhm.
So it was April of 2022 when I began like my longest streak which was like over 3 weeks or something.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try to relapse. I didn't know that's what it was called at the time,
Mhm.
but I was like, I'm gonna relapse and I'm gonna see what happens. And immediately, like everything shifted against me the next
Mhm.
day. It was so bizarre. I felt terrible. My self esteem was terrible. And I was like, you know what? Just never again. How about that?
Mhm.
I'm just not going to, like, I don't care what people say. I'm just going to do this and I'm going to go figure it out for myself because this is what God's leading me to do at this time. And at that point, like, I was already following Jesus. I was already committed to following Jesus. And was I'm sure you understand when you're beginning that true spiritual process of purification, there's certain things that kind of just fall off on the wayside along the way, but you don't really know it needs to go fall off until you get to that certain point.
Mhm.
And so that's what happened. And then it was about just a couple weeks later, and after I started another streak in May, that I discovered NoFap, and I was like, "What is this? Like,
Mhm.
what?" And then I did a lot more research and I was like, this is exactly what I've been doing. Like, I was so like, wow, this is amazing. And so a lot of what I talk about on my experiences with semen retention is just because I was naturally put there by God.
Mhm. So yeah, so you were eventually all these things kind of lined up for you to the point where it just led you down the path. But I wanted to ask you, since you've been on the path, I don't know for how long, but did you? What are the main um, experiences, or what are the main benefits and the overall pros of this practice? Because a lot of people, they hear about it, they hear all the benefits, they hear all the boost in energy and stuff like that, but it's from people that kind of use it in a way to cover up for certain things that they have going on in their life rather than a way to elevate themselves to the next level, not just bring them back to baseline. Because I know for people who are on longer streaks, they'll understand what I'm saying about going from negative to baseline is one process, part of the process, and going from baseline to your actual higher faculties is another. So I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, I mean, the benefits have been endless. I
Mm-hmm.
really, there's like no con except for you're more prone to spiritual attacks. And um, even then, like, uh, it's so worth it. Um, the as far as the overall pros, I guess number one would just be feeling more with yourself. You know what? I've noticed this a long time ago. It's like even the people that are most highly successful, these people that have the houses, the cars, the family, everything on the outside that looks a certain way. All these people had everything, but they were not with who they were and
Mm-hmm.
who they are. They had all these things materialistically, and yet spiritually they were still missing something. And I noticed that, but I didn't know exactly what that was. And with semen retention, I was really able to discover it's that inner purification process
Mm-hmm.
that transforms your soul. It's almost like semen retention takes all of the spiritual trash and the dirt and the muck, and it almost recycles it, spiritually speaking, internally into positive energy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put that energy wherever you want to. You can put that energy into your finances. You can put that energy into your emotional health. You can put that energy to your physical body. I mean, I go to the gym for at least 2 hours a day, every day. There's not a day that I take off anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because I like feeling that strong, positive, energetic. And I'm not like, I'm no, I'm far from the best athlete or the best bodybuilder in the world, but I'm much better than the average person. But to be fair, it doesn't take much to be better than the average person nowadays. Um, so it's not really saying a whole lot, but
That's the truth. Yeah.
yeah, but because it's just it doesn't take too much to be fit anymore. Like it really doesn't. And I say this as somebody that used to be 200 pounds at 5'6". So like I'm at like 155 now,
Mm-hmm.
160, depending on if I'm eating a lot of protein or not. And I don't want to be like this big, bulky guy. I don't want to be that. I want to be a cross between like somebody that can lift a lot of weight and somebody that can have a lot of endurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I've put my spiritual energy toward that a lot as well, just making sure my body is right, my health is right. Because I hate being sick, number one. But number two, it's actually going to serve you and your family legacy down the line when you are actually healthy enough to be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just I don't even know how to begin the answer of that question. Like where are the like what are the pros? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
literally endless pros. It's it's just nothing but positivity.
Mm-hmm. What would you say instead of that question of like all the benefits? Or what would you say are the most impactful and the most profound to you? Like let's break it down into three sections. Like whether that be your mental growth, your we just covered that your physical growth, and then the spiritual. So we can just go into the mental and spiritual side since we already covered the overall boost in vitality, boost in energy, boost in stamina when it comes to the physical domain.
Yeah. Well, mentality wise, you stay vigorous.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this there's this analogy. It's like you're almost like a fully loaded like assault rifle, spiritually speaking. Like you and people know it too. People know it. that's the weirdest thing I've experienced, and I've even had women tell me that they can see my spirit.
Mm.
Like, I've had women literally hypnotized as they look into my eyes. They're like transfixed, and it's because I'm actually centered in myself.
Mhm.
A lot of men can't even look women in the eyes, let alone actually hold their own and be who they are in front of them, because too many men are the depleted coomers out here, right? They are seriously depleted,
Mhm.
and so mentality wise, you're going to get rid of that mentality of the depleted coomer, the scarce mindset. You're going to naturally have an abundance mindset, and you're going to do this naturally. Like, it doesn't, at least in my experience and all the people that I've talked to, the men that are on semen retention, it's very natural. Like, you don't even have to try to be a certain way. You just
Mhm.
are. And as far as the spiritual goes, I mean, the whole point, in my perspective, of semen retention is staying close and growing close to God,
Mm.
and everything else is an added benefit. Of course, you're going to get women attraction. Of course, you're going to get that. That comes with the territory, but that also comes just by you being a better version of yourself in any way, shape, and form. It doesn't mean that you have like this magical power that some people think semen retention is.
Mhm. Yeah, so I like how you really explain how, in the last part, that the most beneficial, the most like profound part of this practice is growing spiritually, and everything else is like an added benefit to that. And this is something that you also mentioned, that for your faith, you're becoming a servant for Jesus, for Christ, and this is something that a lot of people, when they, depending on what kind of content they listen to when it comes to semen retention, they can either be force fed this whole idea that it is a magical trick where you hop on it, you get all this woman attraction, you get all this um, added benefits and stuff like that, which is more surface level. When in reality, those people who watch that are those quote unquote depleted groomers looking for a little cover up, enable for them to be able to still achieve that sense of self pleasure or just sensuality. When the people that see that they get a little bit past it, that's why I say there's like a little period in between where you go from that depleted groomer stage to your normal. Then you realize, whoa, like if I just keep going on it, all these lower desires and stuff kind of like they're always there, but they're not as enticing anymore. Like even getting the female attraction, this and that, whatever, it's just in the background. Even the
Yeah.
physical boost in your vitality and stuff, it's kind of in the background. The closer you get to that spiritual um, growth, what I like to call it, it kind of awakens your spiritual senses so you can connect better to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and you're develop more intuition, you develop more discernment on how you go about life. Like then you'd be like, whoa, bro, everything else is kind of like vessels or vehicles to help me keep improving that. So when my body's improving, I can get further into my spiritual practices. I can get further into my overall growth on that side as well as in mental. So that's a great point that you made. And I kind of wanted to touch on a topic that you mentioned previously, which is how it opens you up to spiritual attacks. So, what do you mean by that? What are some experiences you have by that? And what are some like signs or signals that the viewers or the listeners can kind of pinpoint to see that, whoa, this is what a spiritual attack is. I'm going through that as I'm progressing on this path of semen retention, just overall spiritual growth.
Yeah, so there's two different kinds of ways that you'll have spiritual attacks. Uh, Usually, specifically on semen retention, if you're having spiritual attacks, it's going to be in a dream, number one. And the reason for that is because your spiritual self is more open, you're more vulnerable. And it's not necessarily like you're vulnerable as in like you're weak. It's just like it's like opening your body up and your stomach up to a demon. Like you're just you're not doing it on purpose, but they just happen to pass by and see
Mm.
like you're open, and they want that for the taking because they see like people that are spiritually attuned and aware, they are basically like celebrities in the spiritual domain.
Mm.
And the reason for that is because so many other people are just like in the Matrix. Like they are just part of the machine, they're part of the system. Agents can pop in and out of those people whenever they want. Like the Matrix is a very spiritual movie for those that
Right.
really have eyes to see. It's a very spiritual movie. There's even one point where Neo is holding the spoon, and the child is like,
Mm-hmm.
he shows. I'm sure you remember what I'm talking about, but the child says to Neo something along the lines of, like, the key is to realize that there is no spoon, and that's how you can bend it. Realize that you're the one that bends. And it's like, oh, okay. And so that in of itself, when you really get to that point to where you understand that you're the one that bends, that's when the demons are going to come.
Mm.
That's when the attacks are going to come. Now, what does that look like? It looks like for males, it will look like seductress whores. Really, they're really succubus energy vampires. Like, a lot of the time, I see a lot of men almost capriciously fall into lust, and they're so fixated on the beauty, and the woman really knows how to work her body. And and I'm not even talking necessarily like physically, I'm talking spiritually. The spirit that you're dealing with knows what makes you weak spiritually, because you're basically being studied by these spirits in the spirit domain. So that's the first way. The spiritual attack is if there are things that are blocking you, or if you have like a wet dream, for example. Depending on the wet dream consistency, if you wake up and the semen is thin, it's usually there's somebody out there in the physical world is trying to suck away your energy, and you've given that energy away, and that's why the semen is thin, and it's kind of like a watery substance. And so or you've been spiritually attacked in the dream, and they're literally just trying to take your energy. Now, most of that is prostate fluid, so it's not going to affect your levels of vigor and vitality too much, but it will affect.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second part of the wet dream, while I'm on wet dreams, is when the semen is more thick. That's way more natural. That's going to be where your body's just maturing, and it needs to let go of this older sperm so that it can create new ones. And I've often felt, when I do have those kinds of wet dreams, which isn't often, but when I do, because I've been on semen retention since May now of 2022,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been over 2 years. But when I do have those kinds of wet dreams, I usually feel very spiritually clean. It's like God took like a spiritual sponge through my body and just cleaned out everything, and I just feel very fresh the next day. Whereas with the other kind of wet dream, where the semen's more watery, I feel more like meh,
Mm-hmm.
kind of lacking energy. For the second spiritual attack, you'll have to watch out and have proper discernment with the people that you're dealing with. These are going to be people that are maybe going to intentionally try to sabotage your livelihood, your behaviors, tell you explicitly wrong things to do in the hopes that you fail. These might be people that you thought were with you, and now it's like they're actively working against you, even though that they're successful, even though they've got their own stuff going on. It's like they still don't want to see you rise. And what that is that's a spirit in them that is being agitated. They don't really know this, and usually they don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. That's why they're trying to stop you, because
Mm-hmm.
they're seeing that you're being cleansed of those either generational curses or demons that they're still dealing with. And so it's almost like the spirit that they're stuck with, whatever kind of curse is there, they want to latch on to your energy so that you can. It's like it's the crab in the bucket mentality,
Mm-hmm.
really. But those are the two ways that you can look at spiritual attacks as far as the most clear and definite.
Yeah, like that second part that you said, how uh, people are get agitated about you for certain reasons, and then they don't realize it's their own psychological kind of pitfalls and just turmoil that they project out onto you. They don't want to deal with it themselves, and they don't want to actually address the conflict. So it kind of just boils up in the back of their subconscious mind, and eventually, whenever you're going about your day, and you might do something not even on purpose, but it just triggers that kind of like button in their head to the point where they just project out in front of you, like, yo, don't do this, don't do that, because they have that sense of dread in their own life that they don't want to see somebody else keep on elevating. And a lot of people are unaware of that, and not only unaware of that, but they're programmed to be like that from young, from their childhood and stuff like that. And it's just a bunch of stuff, and that's something that kind of also ties into semen retention. I wanted to ask you if you've had any experiences with that. You kind of start to understand your own psyche better. You start to understand and kind of detach your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. You're able to essentially observe the observer, observe your subconscious mind, and see all the little, like, kind of blemishes and a lot of the different types of uh, bad spots in between your own psyche that you don't want it to be there, yet it's been something that's been programmed for such a while, and you kind of have to reprogram yourself, kind of coming back to the Matrix point that you said before, how it's a very spiritual movie. It's, you start seeing that kind of code that everybody's given to while they grow up, and you're just kind of like, whoa, bro, I never chose to be like this. I never really uh, consciously picked this to be my personality. I just kind of was molded and shaped like Play-Doh throughout those formative years. And now it's time for me to finally not only become aware of it, but also go in there, do like the dirty work, and actually shift myself back into a proper state of mind where I can be a servant for God, or become a divine vessel for God, and just become the best version of myself. And I noticed that semen retention, not only because you're elevating above those lower levels, you kind of finally are transcending above those lower desires that psychologically keep you trapped in thinking only about survival, sex, and status, to now more higher pursuits of creativity, of becoming, like we said, divine vessel for God, and just overall connecting to your true essence. So, is that something that you've also experienced on this path, on the mental and psychological development?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I can speak more to it if you like, but
Yeah, go for it.
to be simplified, yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, so, I mean, yeah, the psychological impact that semen retention has had is tremendously appealing to anybody. And I've seen comments on my channel on the semen retention where people are saying, like, oh, I tried it for X amount of days and I didn't get any benefits, so I'm just going to go back to watching porn. And it's
Yeah,
like,
it's not how it works, man.
like
Yeah.
really, dude, like really, like, um, okay, well, what were your intentions going through it? Like, what were your intentions? Oh, to get like to get chicks or to get more money, and it's like, okay, that's why. That's why
Surface
you're,
level, yeah.
yeah, you're not getting anything because you're not actually seeking. There's a verse in the Bible where Jesus is confronted by the Pharisees at one point, and the Pharisees are the religious leaders at the time, and they say certain things, and Jesus basically tells them, like, you'll seek me, but you will not find me. And the reason being is because of what you're doing. You're not actually seeking me, you're seeking to control through the laws that you think are the most important when they're not. And that's exactly parallel to what a lot of these guys are doing. And even then, like, let's say even if you weren't getting all the benefits, right? Let's say you weren't psychologically improving, you weren't noticing more about what it's like to be who you are in this existence. Are you, like, you're really going to go back to playing with yourself? Like really? Does that really seem like the best option? And because even me myself, I knew that relapsing after that first time, I was like, I, I just want to see what happens. I convinced myself to try it because I wanted to experiment, and I was befuddled by the impact that it had, because I was actually searching for something more. And the thing about godly people and people that are actually pursuing God and actually interested in changing their mind for the better is that they don't always want to like go into sin. They might, but they don't necessarily want to go into it. They want to move away from it, but sometimes people are tempted. And that's understandable, but people usually feel some kind of way after they know that they've sinned. That's completely different from being around or with somebody that is sinning because they're intending to sin.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a temptation at that point. It's no, I'm going to fuck up my life because I want to. No, no, no. That's there's two different mindsets there. And there's two different forms of psychology going on. Um, but yeah, the psychological impact is absolutely insane, really. It's the whole thing, the whole semen retention thing. If I learned about this when I was, hell, if I was even 10, like just 10 years old, like if I was told this by some doctor, like, hey, don't play with yourself. Lions don't play with themselves. Probably would have been better off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead, we're told,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, instead we're told, yeah, you could beat it once a month. You
Yeah.
have to. So stupid.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, going off that, from your own perspective, why you think this quote unquote information is hidden, forbidden, or just not talked about enough? Is it a way to just keep people stuck in their lower nature? Is it just a way to keep people kind of spiritually? I like to think of it almost as when you're on this path and just kind of developing those spiritual senses, it's like the volume in your own head of your higher self, which is like a direct phone line to God. The volume starts to raise. While if you just go on the degenerate side, your lower self, the animalistic self, is that volume keeps getting louder and louder, and inversely, this one gets lower. So that's what I think is kind of going on. But I kind of want to hear your perspective. Like, why is this kind of almost mocked? Is this almost like thought of as like taboo, something nonsensical you have to release, or you're just going to back up your system and all that stuff, when in reality you're living an example of how this can benefit you on a long-term scale on so many domains of life, as well as myself, and for people who are also listening to it, that are kind of like dealing with this point in their journey where they're like, is this even worth it? Is it just placebo? Is this, is that? Kind of like explain how that programming is there for a reason to kind of deter you from the path.
Well, it's the same reason why there's a bunch of PSYOPs nowadays for race wars, gender wars, poor people against poor people while the rich stay rich.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of these things. And I don't have anything against people that are luxurious or living luxuriously, by the way. Like, I want everybody to live luxuriously. I just don't like the people that are living luxuriously at the expense of the sanity of the people that aren't. I don't like that at all. But I think if you earn that, fantastic. But it's the same reason. I think I have a video. I made it a while back, but I think it was called something like "Semen Retention: Why the World Doesn't Want You to Know About It." And basically, in that video, I talk about exactly what you just said. It's they want people staying complacent. They want people staying like it's almost like we have a dildo being shoved up our butts every day, and we're being told that it's good for us. Like, it's good for you to do this. It's good for you to get in the ass by everybody in the society. It's good for you. take it, damn it, like take it. And you're thinking to yourself, I really don't want to. Like, you're like, this is actually kind of painful and I really don't like this. And they're like, no, you're gonna like it. You're gonna like it. And if you don't, we're gonna cast you out from society. And that's exactly what happens in many instances. Like people, which I'm sure you've experienced this to some degree, like people that are actually close to God are almost seen as weird. Not like in our society, they're seen as strange. So yeah, I mean, it's the same reason for all these other things. Like the race wars don't need to happen, the gender wars don't need to happen, poor people don't need to be fighting against other poor people, and yet that's exactly what's happening. Like in the business world, I'm not sure what exactly like you do apart from YouTube or anything like that, but if you've been involved in the corporate world or just any job really, then you probably know that if you're competent and you're actually striving, you get a target on your back. Absolutely. And they'll say, like these companies will say, oh yeah, we want somebody that's growth oriented, that's this, that's that. You know, no. All of that is Jobinese. That's what I call it. Jobinese. It's Jobinese for be a yes person. I want you to do exactly this, exactly that, exactly at this point, else you're not going to work here. It's like slavery is just as relevant today as it was 300 years ago. It's just disguised.
Yeah.
And now everybody's a slave. Everybody is. They just pretend like we're not in this digital zoo that we're really in. We're in a digital zoo. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said on that topic, but people don't, the people that are pulling the strings at the higher up, whoever that is, because that's one of the most terrifying thing about living in the U.S., right? We have no clue who our real leaders are. We have no clue. So we don't even know who to piss off if we even wanted to. Like at least with Hitler or Stalin, right? We had people that, okay, don't screw up with that guy because he'll probably kill us. We don't even know. We don't even know who not to to screw with. So that's what's so bizarre, and everybody thinks that they know what's going on. And my theory is that nobody knows what's going on. Nobody really knows, and that to me is more terrifying. And it's not because I want that to be the case. It's because I genuinely think that nobody really knows. We can all have a bunch of theories, and we can all have a bunch of grasps here and there of what's actually real and what's not. But until we can know all of the facts of certain things, we don't really know the truth. The facts bear out the truth. And that's one of the reasons why people don't want, or like these people don't want to be seeing men that are retaining their seed. Why? Because the longer you spend watching porn, the less time you have to build your life. The more you can be sucked into the matrix, and they're the ones getting your money because you're the product at that point.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, definitely. And another thing I kind of wanted to bridge off with that is, of course, we said a lot about semen retention, and I like to think of it as like a tool, as a almost as a source of super fuel to break you out of the matrix and get you thinking for yourself and actually becoming the best version of yourself on the mental plane, the physical plane, and the spiritual plane. But with that energy and that fuel in place, what would you say is the kind of the protocol or the process into which someone can actually transmute that energy towards, quote unquote, breaking out of the matrix and breaking out of these PSYOPs and just actually becoming an individualized sovereign entity rather than just another pawn on the chessboard that kind of gets pulled in this way mentally through social media and gets pulled that way, and then you have to support this and don't support that, and you're kind of just a cog in the machine for someone else's dream? Like, how do you actually start to use this energy to your advantage towards actually kind of manifesting your own dreams and your own vision into reality?
It's a good question. The simplest answer is to take action.
Mm-hmm.
As a man, if you're not taking action in some way, shape, or form, like you're not going to get anywhere. Men have to be living lives that go like this.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be continuing going up, even if it might look like this.
Yeah.
We have to continue going up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not, then we're probably not taking action. And if we are not taking action, then it's going to be very challenging for anybody to actually move the way that they need to. But taking action is what it comes down to. Just doing something.
And what would you kind of for someone that's kind of like first starting off in this journey, that kind of internally deep down knows that they're actually built for something bigger, better, and more fruitful in their life, what would you kind of direct them towards? Not like you have to do this, you have to do that, but kind of steer them in this direction where maybe your younger self was in that same position where you should focus your energy on this. This is where you'll get the most return on your investment, whether that's in the gym, whether that's reading X amount of whatever books, or educating yourself about this topic and doing this certain spiritual practice. Where would be kind of like the starter kit for you, talking to your younger self who's hopped on this journey and is looking to find the funnels or the outlets to actually direct this energy towards in order to kind of level up from their current situation in life?
Number one would be to get your physical health on point.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not physically active or healthy, it's going to be like, it's not the case that if you look healthy on the outside, you're going to be healthy on the inside. That's not the truth. I've seen a lot of people. The gym that I go to is probably one of the best in my state.
Mm-hmm.
We have some of the top athletes there. And I can tell you without a doubt that some of those athletes, some of those people that go there, they look fantastic on the outside. I'm talking high level, national type level athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And yet their soul is corrupt. Mm-hmm. Their soul is disgusting. When I look into their eyes, I see darkness. But on the outside, they look fresh. They look great. Then on the inside, they look meh. But the physical is going to be the foundation. It is going to be the foundation. So number one would be to get your physical health right, start eating well, drink your proper fluids, get your electrolytes in, make sure that you're eating more protein in some way, shape, or form, especially if you're a man. That would be my recommendation. I know some people want to go vegan or vegetarian, I understand that, but you're still going to need those macros. So get those macros in somehow. Number two would be to meditate. Meditate minimum 10 to 20 minutes. And I've had people in my consultations that I do, they tell me, oh, I don't know if I have time for that. It's like, well, then you'll probably need like 10 hours a day. If you can't find 10 minutes, you need to do 10 hours. And I say that jokingly because like there's actually a sage that said something very similar. He said, if you can't find 5 minutes to meditate, then you're going to need 5 hours, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I say that to my clients as well, because you need to, like, meditation is not emptying your mind. A lot of people think that that's what it is. They're like, oh, meditate, oh, Zen mode. And they get mm-hmm. so excited about being in Zen mode. And it's like, then you don't understand Zen. you don't get what that Zen is. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, but we're gonna teach you. A simple thing that you can do for meditation, very, very simple, is just making sure you can feel the gravity, whatever you want to call it, the density of your body being pulled into your seat. So that you're noticing as you're sitting down, resting your hands on your lap, so you can feel the sensation of doing that. you can listen to the sounds around you, and if you close your eyes, you can notice that the vision isn't quite dark, and you can just begin by being with your senses, number one. And
Mm-hmm.
what that does is it puts you in a place where you are noticing what it's like to be the human being existing as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Number three would be do some kind of form of an intellectual thing. So, like the reading, like writing, like even Sudoku books or whatever. Just something to stimulate the mind in an intellectual way. And number four would be doing something creative.
Mm-hmm.
Create something every single day. It doesn't matter if it's just a mini drawing or a mandala or you're painting I personally play guitar sometimes as well as painting, and writing is a creative outlet for me as well. But something creative, and it doesn't have to be like arts and crafts. It can be like landscaping, or it can be um, building a garden, or whatever it is to you. Just some form of creativity. So doing something physical every day, doing something intellectual every day, doing something creative every day, and doing something uh, having to do with spirituality, like meditation or praying every day.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be the four pillars of making a better life for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point that you made on the last one, creativity, having a creative outlet. Because a lot of the people that I work with, that I talk about on my channel and stuff like that, is that yes, the physical is good, yes, the mental is good, but if you don't have that creative outlet, especially as a man, if you're practicing retention, stuff like that, this source of energy is creative energy. So it needs to be expressed in that sort of way. So whether that's writing, whether that's music, like you just said, you play guitar, or just drawing paintings, or like we're doing right now, creating content, creating a business around it, creating a personal brand, all these things. That is, in my opinion, the most important, because the physical and stuff like that, you can have it, you can everything is important, but I think that one is like where you really start to see the power of this practice come into play, because you're essentially taking the vision that you have in your mind, and you're taking it out of thin air and making it manifest into the physical world. And to me as a man, nothing really can quite compare to that feeling of, okay, I thought about doing this a year ago, and I'm going through the process of building it all together. Then you finally look back for like a quick second, you're like, wow, like this was an idea like a year ago. This was just like in the ether and in the air, and now I kind of did the process of actually creating it and bringing it out into the real world. And like obviously that happens with your seed turning into a child, 9 months, and you're like, whoa, this is a kid now. So it's the same kind of um, correlation, or same kind of ideology in a different aspect. So I kind of want to ask you, how did you come across the old um, idea of wanting to build up this brand, Regal Change, and how has all these practices of spirituality, of improving your mind, improving your body, and just overall becoming the best version of yourself through practices, of course, like semen retention, how did that all come into play, and what really interested you into wanting to share this information, eventually be able to help out other people and expand this brand?
Yeah, it's another good question. Regal Change itself was created based off of the change that I had with Jesus. So
Mhm.
the Regal Change is in part giving credit to God for changing me through regal means.
Mhm.
And when I say that, because to be regal is to be kingly or some kind of form of royalty, right? So regal change was really about, in many ways for me, just starting regal change was giving credit to God and having a business that would work for God's glory.
Mhm.
I had no clue I'd be eventually talking with other people, like content creators on a podcast. I had no clue. In fact, I made like 20 videos or something before I even got any kind of traction. I
Mhm.
had zero subscribers, zero views, zero everything. And by the time the 20th video came around, I was like, man, is this like, am I even like, because I had all of these signs from God. It was so strange. It was so strange. For months before this, I had people telling me, hey, aren't you the guy with the YouTube channel?
Mm.
I was like, no. I mean, that'd be great, but no. And I've never seen these people
Before you
again.
even started the channel, people were saying that?
Yeah, before I even started the channel.
Wow.
And so I was like, no.
What?
And it kept happening. It kept happening. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is just God urging me to go do this thing. And so that's what I did. But then I got 0 views for like a long time. Like I'd made 20 videos and nothing. And I thought to myself, God, what the crap? Like, what am I doing? This information that I'm putting out here, I know is valuable.
Mhm.
I know people are going to resonate with it. I know that there's going to be a specific kind of person that's going to resonate with this, because I can put things that are complex into a rudimentary understanding.
Mhm.
And I know I can do this. I know it, but why isn't it happening? Why isn't it happening? I don't know what's going on. And as soon as I was about to give up, I was like, you know what? I'll make one more video and we'll see what happens. And then after that, as soon as I was about to give up, that's when God blessed me.
Mhm.
As soon as I was still fighting, I was still moving forward, even though I was, mentally I was being beaten. Like things weren't going well with at work at the time. I was trying to start, the YouTube channel, and I was like, I just don't know what to do. I know my destination. I just don't know how to get there. And I knew that I was going to that destination with Jesus, but it was still like months after this, because this was 2 years ago, I suppose, at this time, when I started to actually make videos for YouTube. And so I had already been following Jesus for 8 months at this point, really trying to, really committed to him. And I just couldn't get anywhere, but I was still in the trenches. I was still building. I was still going. And that's why God blessed me. That's why, because I didn't give up on what I was actually doing, because I was staying consistent and I was staying relentless. Even though it looked like I was losing, even though it looked like I wasn't going to win this battle, I kept going. And that's what really made the difference. And so when I got to that point after Regal change, I mean, at the time it was just Thaddeus Mitchell, my YouTube. But then I built the Regal change brand after that, a few months, probably October, November of 2022, and started the business, started doing spiritual consultations, started just talking to a lot of different kinds of people all over the world. At this point, I've talked to 150 plus people all over the world. I mean, 20 to 30 different countries. It's really astounding to just see the impact. Like in the Bible, it says Abraham will be a father of nations. I didn't really understand what that meant until I was able to actually see the impact being made around the world, literally. And I thought to myself, wow, whoa. It's not just Abraham that God's talking to. It's all of us. We're going to be, as men, we're going to need to be the father of nations. We're going to need to be, if we're going to actually do something with our lives, because all of our actions have a ripple effect throughout the world, whether we know it or not. We're all very connected. And that's one thing about meditation that I learned, is when I started to really focus on the breath, there was at one point I thought to myself, what's the difference between like my breathing and anybody else's breathing? And I almost had this, like, that question ignited a spiritual alchemical change, that I realized, oh, we're all breathing, like our hearts are all beating simultaneously, we're all breathing simultaneously. Everybody that's sharing this common life, we're one organism. And so this is another part of the regal change, is unity through spirit and truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, in the Bible, John 4:24, it says, those that worship God worship in spirit and truth.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I don't care. Like, this is one of the reasons I say I follow Jesus. I don't say I'm a Christian. I say I follow Jesus because I know that spirit and truth is what will ultimately unite us all.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what it means to be the body of Christ, is to live in spirit and truth.
So there's okay. Go ahead. My bad.
No. I was just thinking about how all of that really just building the Regal Change brand through this time, looking back, spirit and truth is really the ultimate goal, I think. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was bridging off with. So it seems like the message that you want to get across to people with this brand is unity, truth through spirit, and all that. So when people click on your videos, before they even know who you are, what is the main goal, or if they could get one thing out of your videos, your channel, your brand, what would you want that to be for people?
To be empowered to make the right choices. And not just the right choices for themselves, even though I think everybody ought to have their own self at their mental focal point of origin, but to make the right choices for that just to make the right choices, that is right. It is the right thing to do.
So just overall, kind of be conscious enough of your own decisions and how it affects not only you but for other people as well, and actually taking a step back and not just letting your impulses or your kind of your preconceptions just dictate your every action, is what I'm getting, right?
Correct.
Well, that's one of the most important things that I think people lack in today's world, is they get pulled wherever their emotions take them, wherever the external world takes them, and then never actually take a step back and be like, okay, do I actually want to do this? If I do this, what are the actions that come about it? And then when you finally start to delve into these topics and stuff like that, you start to build up that spiritual discernment, or just the overall ability to psychologically look at things from a more expanded perspective. And it seems like your content and everything like that is focused on that area. And just to bridge everything off before we wrap things up, I wanted to ask you, is there any projects, is there any pieces of content or new things that you got cooking up that we can be expecting down in the near future?
That's a good question. One of the things I'm not going to talk about, because that's something that I've been working on as a project for a long time now, for 4 years. That'll be a project coming out with hopefully within the next 6 to 12 months. I can't say much else other than that. As for other projects, we have the Regal Change Academy, and this is. Are you familiar with School? SKOOL?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the Regal Change Academy, and we just made another couple of courses, a few new courses for that. It's really been an engaging platform for anybody that wants a community with people that are wanting to live in spirit and truth. That's it. That's where we're at. We do weekly group calls, and we've got more courses coming down the line. We've got more projects coming down the line for that specifically. We have a 7 Deadly Sins course that'll be coming out within the next couple months. But there's plenty of resources there already. We've got a semen retention course in there to help you track certain things or to do certain things. We've got fitness regimens. So part of what I'm doing now for Regal Change as a brand is not only am I doing spiritual consultations, but I'm also doing fitness training as well. So this will be either online or in person. But the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm realizing that fitness training can be the foundation for the spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn spiritual truths while working out. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can get these spiritual nuggets of wisdom when you surpass a certain threshold in your mind, and you can make that gap after you're getting exhausted or tired.
Mm-hmm.
If you just push a little bit harder, it's almost like there's this kinetic energy that starts happening. And I want to show people how to do that through fitness training,
Mm-hmm.
because that'll access deeper parts of the spiritual understanding as well. Because you can do hard things. A lot of people don't think they can until they actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as for the Regal Change brand in itself, that's mainly the goals there. Um, I think that's actually pretty much everything that I'd be willing to share at this point. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can't talk about those other things just yet.
Gotcha. So you got a bunch of things going on, and for people that are kind of introduced to your channel, your brand, throughout this podcast, where can people find you at? Where the different locations, digital little communities that you got going on? Where can people tap into your content and just be able to connect with you more?
Yeah, so on YouTube it'll be at Regal Change, and then on X, Instagram, and TikTok it'll be at Regal Changes. Um, I guess also have a Regal Change music channel, uh,
Hmm.
as well as a Regal Change fitness channel, and that's been starting. And those are going to be at Regal Changes, which is at Regal Changes Music, I think is the music channel, and then at Regal Change Fitness for that one. Uh,
Hmm.
but trying to diversify. Regal Change is going to be the main channel, but the Regal Change music is more just anybody that wants to be inspired through godly music. Almost everything that I do there is original, and there's a couple covers, but then the Regal Change Fitness, that's going to be more oriented toward the fitness training and such, and giving people inspiration there. But that'll be the way to find everything else is just at Regal Change or at Regal Changes. Those will be the main
Okay.
the main app.
Gotcha. And I'll link everything into the description of this video as well as the podcast. But I appreciate you joining on the call, man. And it was a great, just overall enlightening conversation. We discussed a lot of different topics, and we probably could have gone for another hour, hour and a half, because there's a lot of different things that we can unpack. So if we ever do collaborate once again, maybe on the Regal Change podcast, I most definitely would be open to that. But once again, man, thank you for joining. I appreciate you just taking out the time to be able to help educate, entertain, and enlighten our audiences, and giving out a good message and a just overall empowering and uplifting overall brand and outlook on life that it seems like you're really embodying.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me.
No doubt, man. Take care.